All right, guys, welcome back. So, a news of the day video, which we haven't done one of these in a long time because usually I don't break news because most of the time I'm traveling and it's very hard to break news when you don't have a whiteboard sitting around and all that stuff, right? So I kind of leave the breaking news stuff to Dirt Tracker. He does a pretty good job with that. Jeremy Elliott also jumps in on that stuff a little bit as well. But I have a whiteboard exclusive, I guess, here today. So Parker Price Miller told me at the Port Royal Speedway this weekend that he will be driving the Brandon Ikenberry number 25 car with his number on it for the rest of the High Limit Racing season because, well, it sounds like, after the West Coast swing that the PPM team lost a crew guy, lost a CDL truck driver, and their truck and trailer requires a CDL license to be able to drive it up and down the road to all of these races. And so without that, this last weekend at Port Royal, they actually had Zach Hampton pick up Parker's car in Indiana, put it in Hampton's trailer. They drove his truck to Port Royal Speedway, and Hampton was part of the crew and all that stuff. I mentioned that on the Flow Racing broadcast that Hampton was a part of the crew, but he did drive Parker's 9P car out there to the track. And so that's kind of something that they're having to deal with right now. And so Parker texted me earlier today, told me that, basically he texted Brandon Ikenberry and said, hey, can we work something out here for let me to run your car for the rest of the High Limit Racing season? I'm up there kind of high in the overall point standings, the owner's points, and he's going to basically just take Ikenberry's 25 car and put a 9P on the side of it, and that is going to be the car he runs for the rest of the season with High Limit. And it's kind of a little bit different from what we saw with Cy Lynch and Tanner Thorson this last weekend because Thorson did not actually race the car. He was gone, had somebody else drive his car with the 88 on the side of it. But PPM will actually be driving in the races. He's just going to have a different car than he's normally used to driving with a different number on the side of it, right? So that's a little bit of breaking news there for Parker Price Miller. We'll keep an eye on that, how it goes for him at the Lernerville Speedway coming up in 2 nights. That car was there. That 25 car was there at Lernerville earlier this year when High Limit went to Lernerville with Jason Persley behind the wheel. So they have been there, and they've done a lot of traveling this year. They've had some good runs between the Outlaws and High Limit as well. So we'll see how PPM does in that car on Friday night at Lernerville. Now, Brian Brown did return to racing this last weekend at Port Royal with High Limit for the Tuscarora 50 after that appendix surgery. And during that weekend, he did have a couple of good runs in there. And he has now become the 29th different driver so far this year to break into the $100,000 in earnings club so far in this season. Obviously, still a very long ways to go this year, and we do expect quite a few more drivers to jump into that same category, right? The next couple of drivers that we are expecting to see eclipse that $100,000 mark, Justin Sanders, he's the closest at $98,000. Behind him, Chris Windham is at $96,000. Brock Zierfoss is somewhere between $96,000 and $90,000. I can't remember off the top of my head, but TJ Stutz is in 4th right there, $90,000 for him on the year. And then Austin McCarl at $86,000. So those would be the drivers you would expect to see, get over that 100K mark next. Justin Sanders probably going to hit that number on Friday when the Outlaws roll into Bakersfield, I believe. They're going to Bakersfield this weekend. So Sanders will be there. All he's got to do basically is make the show and run, probably in the top 10, and he'll break over that 100K mark. So I'm expecting we'll get a little over 40 drivers, I would say, will get over 100 grand. And then we'll do a video comparing that to last year and seeing, how many more guys this year have been able to do that. Now, the Durst dice roll is something that has been crazy to watch all year long with High Limit. And it's been crazy to watch this last weekend because it hit 2 times in 3 races. But so far this year, 9 times has the Durst dice roll hit with High Limit in 44 races, paying out $47,000. Now, you guys know I am horrendous at math, but I believe that is $23,500 going to a race fan, to race fans alone, right? And the other half going to the driver that wins the race. So it's a very cool thing. It's a great addition to the series, great addition to the Flow Racing broadcast, and people look forward to it each and every night. Now, with the 8th and 9th hits this weekend, that now makes it to every 4.8 races this happens. The Durst dice roll is claimed, right? So that's a pretty crazy number. Way more than anybody else would have thought going into the year. I honestly thought it maybe happened twice all year, but 9 times, and I would bet you it happens at least one more time in the last 11 or 12 races that we have this season. Now, I want to go through who's hit it so far real quick. So Saturday night, Rico went 3rd to 1st, got the $3 grand there. Race 42 with Brad Sweet on Thursday at Port Royal went 5th to 1st in his race. Race 35 at Silver Dollar, Tanner Thorson, 3rd to 1st for $3,000 there. Race number 30, Rico Abreu at Lernerville Speedway. He went 8th to 1st for $8,000. Race 26, Tyler Courtney at Lucas Oil Speedway in Missouri. He went 9th to 1st for $9,000. Danny Dietrich got a win at Port Royal on race number 18 of the year, 3rd to 1st for him. And so that means that Port Royal has had 3 Durst dice rolls hit in their races this year with High Limit. Tyler Courtney during race 15 got a win at Kokomo from the 4th position. That was good enough for $4,000. Brent Marks at Tri-City, Illinois, 5th to 1st in that one for $5,000. And then Corey Day, and that was during race 14. Corey Day during race number 7 of the year at Red Dirt Raceway went 7th to 1st for $7,000. So, yeah, we'll see if that hits more. I bet you it does at least one more time before the season is over with High Limit Racing. Now, want to talk about this as well. I was hearing, some rumors. People were murmuring, as they say, over the weekend at Port Royal Speedway about Dylan Cisney. So Cisney, he finished 11th at the Tuscarora 50, did not make the show the first 2 nights on Thursday and Friday, but he did finish 11th on Saturday night. But in his heat race interview with Tony Laporta, he said, quote, "I don't know if I have a ride for next season." And the reason I'm bringing this up because a source, a pretty reliable source, told me that the car owner, who is Scott Kalman, a car owner that's based in Wisconsin, obviously Cisney races primarily in Pennsylvania, but Kalman and Cisney first teamed up around 2020. They ran a part-time schedule together, and that was when Cisney was in the number 2 car. And then things evolved and evolved more and more, and then he became the 5 car again. And it sounds like most of the truck, the trailer, the cars, the engines, almost everything belongs to Scott Kalman. And it sounded like at some point throughout the week at Port Royal that Kalman ended things with Dylan Cisney. And so the season so far for them was actually not the worst. I feel like it's not a bad season at all. 5th in the overall Port Royal Speedway point standings. They did have one win on the season. There has been no official word from either side, that being Scott Kalman or Dylan Cisney, right? So Kalman was the sponsor on the car, the SCA Incorporated. That is him. So we'll wait and see what happens. But maybe that 11th place run changed things up. I have no idea. We'll wait and see what goes on. But, you heard that quote I just mentioned there from Cisney in his heat race interview. He doesn't sound so confident for next year as well. And from what sources are telling me, that's something that might be coming true, right? So we'll have to wait and see what they say out on Facebook and whatnot. There's still a lot of racing to get to in Pennsylvania this year. The National Open still has to happen. There's still a bunch of races going on. And so maybe that car shows up again with him as the driver. We'll have to wait and find out. Now, the final thing I wanted to mention here was Brent Marks last night was kind of stirring up some things a little bit, right? So Brent Marks put up a huge Facebook post, a couple paragraphs long. And the last I checked, it had like 250 shares, 400 comments, 1,000 likes, all kinds of stuff on Facebook. And you can find this post for yourself. Just, go Brent Marks on Facebook. His profile is public. You can look at it and read all about it, right? But here are some of the quotes that I wanted to tell you guys about if you did not see it. Quote, "I've realized how bad sprint car racing actually is right now," end quote. And then he goes on to say, "The quality of the entire show is awful, worse than it was before when we tried to create passing." So Brent Marks obviously not happy, but the interesting thing about this, the timing of this, with the race at Port Royal on Saturday, we all know it was not a good race, right? And I think everybody at Port Royal, when it comes to the staff there, would agree with that as well. Steve Steinley is not happy with how things turned out. He's the track prep guy there. He was going through the pits telling guys that he's sorry about what happened. And it's hard, man. Track prep is obviously very hard. It's hard to perfect it. And obviously they did not do that on Saturday. But it's definitely interesting that Brent Marks would bring this up after a race like Port Royal, where it was single file around the bottom. People were leaving early, all that stuff, right? And I think that's kind of not a very fair time to do it because of a bad race. But I don't know, man. Brent Marks is obviously very, very qualified to talk about things like this. Way more qualified than me. I mean, he's been racing sprint cars for a long time. He's spent time on the Outlaw Tour. He's full-time with High Limit. He's won a lot of big races. And he says in that Facebook post he's been watching a lot of races. He doesn't know why he's been watching a lot of races, but he's been watching a lot of replays and things like that. And he does not like how the racing product is. But he does feel like sprint car racing is in a position right now where it could gain so much traction and so much popularity and so much momentum with the entire, global racing scene. I'm not global, but definitely like, within North America and stuff, right? Like, stealing NASCAR fans and IndyCar fans and road course fans, right? If they just came and watched a sprint car race, then they would love it, right? But Marks is not happy with how things have been going with the on-track product. He doesn't think the racing has been very good. And now, why is that? He didn't really, point out a specific reason. Is it the tires? Is it the wings? Is it the wicker bill situation? Is it something else? He didn't really point out a particular thing in mind, but definitely some interesting comments there. And I want to hear from you guys in the comment section below. This year, what do you think about sprint car racing? Do you think it's been good? Have we seen good races? I think we've seen great races, right? Has it been an overall good season for racing, or has it been terrible? Are you guys agreeing with what Brent Marks has said here? In my opinion, which I'm sure a couple of you guys are interested in, I think the racing has been good. I mean, there's obviously going to be some stinkers in there every now and again. Port Royal was definitely a stinker for sure. But, wing sprint car racing is hard, man. Everybody has the same stuff. The guy that qualified 35th or 40th at Port Royal Speedway on Saturday night has the same exact equipment, the same exact stuff. He could buy the same stuff as the guy that went quick time on Saturday at the Tuscarora 50, right? That's just the nature of it, right? And you put a guy like that out front with the same equipment as somebody else, it's tough to pass, man. And I do agree that I would love to see some changes happen to where you can make passes on guys a little bit easier, right? Is it the dished wing that we need? Is it to try a different tire compound? Is it to try a different tire manufacturer? I have no idea. Do we go with a smaller wicker bill, a bigger wicker bill? I don't know what the answer is, but maybe, we'll see some changes happening through the end of the year, right? I'm sure a lot of people in the sprint car world, as far as higher up guys, people that make those big decisions, saw that and are maybe thinking about it, right? When a high profile driver comes out and says something like that, people are going to take notice, right? So I want to hear you guys' thoughts about what Brent Marks said, maybe your thoughts as well about all the rest of the stuff we have here on this news board. But thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you guys again here very soon. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button as well. And like I said, make sure to comment down below. And we'll talk to you guys again here tomorrow on the channel. Thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you again soon.